Hello beautiful perception trainers people, and welcome back to another video. And in today's video, this is technically an Ask Aliyah Anything, where I was asked on one of my older videos about loving my body healthy, how it's possible to desire something without going into a state of lack. Because essentially, the fundamental thing about desiring something is realizing that you don't already have what you want, and that there is a lack of it in your life, and that you want that thing to be there. And especially when we want something very, very badly and do not see how we're going to be able to create that thing for ourselves, desiring it and wanting it and then not knowing how we're going to get it or if we're going to get it can be a very, very painful experience. But so essentially we have to understand that, of course, when we're desiring something, we are technically in a state of lack in the sense that we don't have that thing. Now, whether we exist in an energetic, emotional, mental state of anguish because of that lack, if we're in pain and suffering because of that lack, or if we're capable of enjoying the life that we do have, enjoying what we do have, enjoying the journey towards what it is that we want, is a very different matter, okay? So I think the very first thing that I want to say about desire and about lack is that, there's the reality of lack in the sense of you want something that you don't have. And that is inherent in life, all right? And we are always going to be, technically, in a state of lack because in order for life to be life, it must be constantly growing, evolving, changing, and expanding. It has to be continually on a journey of becoming something new, which is the act of creation. That is all that evolution is. That is all that life is. It is creating something new from that which was. And so if we're not technically in a state of lack all the time, what I'm saying here is that essentially everything that you do, everything that you accomplish, everything that you achieve, everything that you create in your life is always going to be the foundation for the next thing that you want to create, the next thing you want to achieve, the next thing you want to do, the next thing that you want to become. Everything inherent in this life, okay, because life is a journey of continual evolution. It is meant to be, or it is something that is continually evolving and expanding upon itself. Either that, or if we're in a state of degradation, it's going to be devolving, but still in an incremental step, like the foundation, the bottom that you were when you, and then you devolve, creates a new bottom, creates a new bottom, creates a new bottom. Everything is just an upward motion or a downward motion from where we are. So this is inherent in life, okay? Lack is a part of this, and lack is a fundamental part of this. So if we can start to even just think of it that way, just because we don't have something doesn't mean life has gone wrong. And in fact, not having something means life is going correctly, because we are meant to grow, evolve, change, and expand. We are meant to create something new from what we have all the time, which means, like I said, we're always going to be in a state of not having the next thing, because everything that we accomplish is meant to be a foundation for the next thing that we're going to create. This is why we talk so much in these videos about the fact that there is no heaven, there is no after, there is no complete, there is no I've arrived and now I'm done. That's death, okay? In life, there is no stagnancy. In life, there is no stagnancy. You're either evolving or you're devolving, yes? And desire is what keeps us evolving. Without desire, if we didn't want something new, if we weren't having something that was charging us forward, that was the carrot on the stick that had us continually going out forward to learn something new, learn something new, learn something new, we would then be naturally in a state of devolution because we would have no impetus to evolve. So desire is simply the impetus that gets us to evolve. Yeah? if we didn't have that, if we didn't want something we don't already have, if whatever we just created didn't become the foundation for the next thing we want to create, we would then sit in what looked like stagnation. But if we're not inquiring to gather more information, to keep going and create something new, we would then start to stagnate. And most people do stagnate, okay? Or devolve. And we're going to talk about that as we go along. But again, just to really understand that to lack something inherently is not a bad thing. That is a fundamental component of life that is required for evolution. If you are not aware of the thing that you want to create from where you are right now, and if there is no motivation to create something new, then you're just going to be in devolution, because there would be no motivation to be evolving. And because life is either evolving or it's dying, you want to be evolving. Desire is a good thing. Now, it's how we perceive desire and so much about our superstition about desire that gets us in trouble. Okay, so first question, how do we be in a state of desire without being in a state of lack? You can't. You're going to be in a state of lack when you desire something. But that state of lack does not have to be painful. This is the key, all right? Lack, not having something, is not inherently painful. We make it painful based on our superstitions and our beliefs. So the next question that I want to sort of look at, and then we'll tie these two things in together and do this as our big exploration for this video, is I was asked, if I'm feeling these negative emotions about how I don't have what I want, and I'm allowing myself to feel disappointed, and I'm allowing myself to feel sad, and I'm allowing myself to feel angry, aren't I then blocking myself from manifesting what I want? If I allow myself to indulge in my negative feelings about the things that I don't have, or just in general, if I just allow myself to indulge in negative feelings, aren't I manifesting into my reality more negative things? And again, I just want to say I understand why this is so confusing, right? Like, we have The Secret, we have these law of attraction teachings that are all just complete superstition. And I just really want to put that word on it, because that is really what it is. Superstition is essentially saying we don't understand how the actual system functions. We don't understand that everything in reality is an effect that came from a cause. That everything in reality has a cause, and whatever we're experiencing is the effect of that cause. And that really, when we're talking about being powerful creators, we're not talking about having complete emotional control over ourselves because the universe is out there, like, perceiving your emotions and then just sending you things based on how you feel, saying, like, it's like this very weird thing if you really think about it. This idea that if I'm feeling negative emotions, the universe thinks that's what I want and it's going to send me more of that because it's just my vibrational frequency that tells the universe what I want. That makes the universe sound really stupid, don't you think? Like, and again, that's projecting human consciousness onto a complex system that isn't human. Okay? Like, this is part of what superstition is. It's seeing something happen in the world, not understanding how it's happening, projecting our current human perspective onto that thing, and then trying to make what's happening make sense in the context of what it would be if it was being dictated by a human consciousness that's at the level that we're at right now. So, for instance, back in the day, what we would call superstition was when tribes would make offerings to the god of wind or to the god of rain or to the god of harvest to try to have rain come, or to make it rain if there was a famine, or if there was a drought, or to make plants grow if it was a famine. And they would think if they do these rituals, they make these sacrifices, they say these prayers to this spirit of rain or this spirit of growth or this spirit of whatever, it would then respond by giving them what they wanted. And that was a complete projection of human consciousness at the time onto nature. You see, they were saying, if I was nature, if I was rain, and the humans wanted me to give them rain, I would want them to worship me. I would want them to give me meat. I would want them to give me all these things because that's what I want. So if we just give the God of rain those things, he's going to reward us. That's superstition, because now we understand weather is not responding to humans giving them a lamb. I mean, some of humans are understanding that. Weather is a very complex system. And as we're starting to understand that weather happens the way that it happens, that it's, again, a very complex system. That's this whole big universal, like, or at least worldwide phenomenon of, you know, wind happening in Tokyo creating a hurricane over in Indiana, that it's this very complex thing. And what we're learning is that rather than trying to control the weather or trying to get it to do what we want it to do, we're figuring out that if we understand how the weather works, we can predict its patterns. Because it has a pattern, we can adjust our behavior, right? We can change where we plant foods to be in an area where the chances of those foods being able to propagate are high based on the pattern, the weather patterns that we've seen in that area, based on the soil patterns we've seen in that area, based on nature and observing the patterns. This is a completely different thing than superstition. So let's look at this metaphor again. Superstition says, I want plants to grow where I am because I want food. I don't understand how the system works. I don't understand why the plants aren't growing or what makes them grow. So when they grow, I don't understand why that happens. When they don't grow, I don't understand why that happens. So I'm just going to project my human consciousness onto the reality and give it what I would want and hope that it will then give me what I want in return. Okay? When in reality, in not superstition, we understand, no, everything is a system. Everything is just a system. There's just a system to how the weather works. There's a system to how plants work. There's a system to how soils work. And if we understand the system, we can adjust what we're doing to fit how the system works, and then we get what we want. Okay? So we may not be able to get it in this area, or when during rain season, or when there's going to be a hurricane or whatever is going to happen. That's going to happen. But if we adjust for that, we understand the pattern, we can grow food in areas where it's likely to grow based on the patterns. Yes, we can get what we want if we understand the pattern. We stop planting food, planting certain seeds that aren't going to grow in a certain condition, because we understand that that plant doesn't grow in those conditions. If we understand the plant and what it needs to thrive, we know where to plant it and we know how to plant it so that it will grow. So we can have what we want via understanding the system. Yes, we have to stop projecting how we want the system to be onto the reality and expecting it to go that way, and rather say, okay, no, I can have what I want. I just have to understand how the system works. And as I understand how the system works, I adjust my own behavior accordingly to get what I want within the system that exists. So this is what I'm really wanting to drive home here, okay? Desire should not be a superstition. If anything that you're believing in your life has an arrow, okay, and I like this explanation. When you're learning chemistry in high school, real actual chemistry is super, super complicated. And so in order to make it semi-digestible for a high school mind, the curriculum is going to be designed so as to oversimplify concepts so that you can understand little basicness of the concepts, but not really understand the whole concept. So, for instance, when they're teaching you about chemical reactions, they will say you take this chemical plus this chemical, draw an arrow, and it will equal this new compound. Okay, that arrow is where all the actual science technically happens. Yes? When you put this chemical and this chemical together, there's a whole mess of cause effect, cause effect, cause effect, cause effect, cause effect, a cascade of reactions that are happening during that arrow that then lead to the creation of that new compound. Okay, so it is not as though we put these two things together and then it's just nothing happens and then it's there, right? There's a whole bunch of things that happen. This enzyme breaks this down, which causes this reaction, which causes this reaction, which changes the shape of this, which changes the shape of that, which changes the shape of this, which creates this new chemical, which mixes these two things together, which then creates this new compound. But they're not going to tell you all of that because that's super complicated and you never understand that. So they just put arrow, this new compound. And you memorize that, but you don't actually understand how it works, right? Because that arrow contains so much information that you don't have now. So you don't really understand why, when we put these two chemicals together, they equal this compound. You just memorize that when we put these two chemicals together, it makes this compound. And you don't understand why that new compound has the characteristics that it does, has the effects on other things that it does, because it's a very complicated, complex thing. Nothing is ever isolated. Yes? Every cause has everything that happens is going to create a cascade of effects. And it's a whole mess of things. Reality is complicated. So if your belief system in how you're going to create what you want includes an arrow, you're always going to be lost in superstition. So if we look at this thing of, if I feel negative emotions, I'm never going to create what I want, because feeling negative emotions arrow bad things happening in my life. Why? Well, because the universe is going to send me the things that are vibrationally a match to me. Why? Do you understand that? What's the system there? Like, if you really think about it, can you explain that? Can you really, if you really look deeply at that fundamental belief system? Number one, does it work every time? And I think for most of us, we can say absolutely not. There have been many, many times in my life where I was in a terrible mood, in a terrible place, and someone came and gave me a big hug and told me they loved me. And that was not a vibrational match to where I was at. There have been many, many times where I was in a great mood. Everything was awesome. I was on top of the world, and someone rear-ended me. Or I got a letter in the mail saying that I owed a bunch of money that I didn't realize that I owed. Right? And I was in a great place. And that didn't match the vibration I was in. Okay. What we need to start to understand is that arrow, okay, that stress, that you feeling, okay, here's how you know you're operating in superstition. All right? And this is the whole pain of desire. Okay, so this ties into the beginning question of, how do I have a desire without going into a state of lack? What we're really talking about, and what you're really saying to me when you say, how do I have a desire without going into a state of lack? Or, if I feel negative emotions, aren't I then going to just manifest more shitty things into my life? Like, don't I have to be a vibrational match to what I want, therefore be in a positive state all the time in order to create what I want? Otherwise, the universe is just going to keep giving me shit that I don't want. What you're really saying is, I don't understand how I'm going to create what I'm going to create. I don't understand how to get what I want. I'm trying to figure out the system, or I just don't understand the system so much that I literally just feel terrible thinking about having something that I want because I don't know how I'm going to get it. So this whole pain of desire, right? The suffering that comes along with wanting something you don't have, and the whole stress, okay? Because that's what this is. You're gonna feel when you are believing in superstition, there's gonna be this intense, helpless stressfulness about the actions that you're doing. And there's going to be this sense that you are doing something wrong, but you don't really know what you're doing wrong or why doing it right would really mean something. And so really what you're, like I say, this all boils down to the fact that humans don't understand how creation happens. Okay? We're in pain when we have desire, and we believe in superstition because we don't understand the system. So the pain of desire is really saying, I literally have no idea how I'm going to create what I want to create, and therefore it's very likely that I'm not going to be able to get it. Yeah? And or you feel just in the lowest state ever, victim state, right? If you really don't know how the system works, and you're pretty much aware that you don't know how you're going to get what you want, you're essentially in a state of saying, I am victim to the world to either give it to me or not give it to me, and I don't have any control over whether it's going to give it to me or not. Right? I have this thing that I want, I don't know how to create it, and I'm just hoping that something is going to give it to me. That's a victim state, and that's why it feels terrible. Because you don't know how you're going to create what you want, because you don't understand the system, so you're just hoping that it's going to come to you at some point, and you're essentially, your emotional guidance system that's saying this feels terrible is telling you it probably isn't. Because we are creators. We are here to create what we want through understanding the system. Now, the second thing, right, the superstition part, that is our attempt at understanding it. That's our attempt at projecting our human understanding, our current limited human understanding and human-centric understanding onto a reality that isn't human. That's first thing. And that's far more complex than what we are thinking it is. And the reason it feels so stressful is because we're starting to take responsibility. Okay, so the superstition, I just have to be in this vibrational state of positivity all the time in order to create what I want to create. That's a step above, I have no idea how I'm going to create what I'm going to create. I'm a complete victim, and I just hope that something happens that I get what I want. Right? Okay, no, I do have some power here. I do have some control. I'm going to create what I want through being a vibrational match to it all the time. And being a vibrational match means that I'm in an energetic, emotional state of peace and calm and happiness all the time. Now let's look at that. Our current state of human projection. What do we all want? Happiness, peace, love. We want to feel good. So what are we projecting out onto the universe? If I give the universe my feelings of happiness, joy, and peace, it's going to give me what I want. Do you see how this isn't different at all from when we wanted food and we wanted meat and we wanted to be praised? And so humans gave sacrifices of meat and praise to the universe to give them what they wanted, right? Projecting current human need, current human what I would want if I had something that someone else wanted from me. What would I want them to give me in return for the thing that they want me to give them? Meat and praise was the old superstition, because that's what humans wanted back then. And now in our current state, what humans want is happiness, joy, and peace. So we're like, I'll just keep giving the universe happiness, joy, and peace, and then the universe is going to give me what I want. You see how this is complete superstition? This is absolutely not different than giving a meat sacrifice to the universe or to the god of rain. Saying, if I'm in a vibrational state of joy, the universe is going to give me my ideal partner is absolutely no different than if I sacrifice this lamb, the god of rain is going to give us rain. It's the exact same thing. It's just saying, this is what I want. I don't know how I'm going to get it. I'm in a universe where I'm projecting onto the reality that the reality has what I want. I don't know how I'm going to get it, but I know that it exists. So I have to appease the reality, I have to appease the gods, I have to appease this external force by giving it what I would want, and then I'll get what I want. It'll give me what I want. That's what we're doing. Okay, we really need to see that this is complete superstition. This is arrow. We don't understand what happens in between these two things becoming the compound. We just put an arrow, and it makes us feel like we have some sort of control. Okay, so that's the thing. Because humanity is so bad right now at learning, and that's really why so many of us never reach our desires and feel like shit all the time. The reason we feel like shit is because we're not allowing ourselves to learn. And rather than going and learning about how the system actually functions and allowing ourselves to become more complex, right? How the system actually works. Again, about weather, for instance, to create plants that we want is far more complex than just give the god of rain lamb. Yeah, that was a very, very, very primitive understanding. The actual understanding of weather patterns and how everything in the whole earth affects everything in the rest of the earth, about how plants work, about how soil works, about how farming works, about, like I said, weather patterns. That was a whole big, complex, new, massive amount of information that we needed to know that now has made it so that we can successfully grow plants all year round. Yes? We are getting into a state where we're less and less and less susceptible to famine, not because weather has changed, not because the universe has changed, not because we offered enough lamb or said enough prayers. It's because we understand how the system works better and better and better and have altered our own behavior to match the system. We plant foods in places we know they can grow based on the systems we now understand, so they grow. We have built greenhouses because we understand the environments and the requirements of certain plants to grow, and we can take it out of being so susceptible to the weather so we can have plants all year round. That's understanding the system, which is very complex, and then creating something new on top of that system within that system to create what we desire. So again, let's look at the whole big concept. The whole point of human life, being an individual in this reality, is to be an individual with a relative experience, a relative perception and perspective. So you don't see everything. You don't feel everything. You're not aware of everything in the universe, not at all. You have a relative perspective within the universal consciousness. Okay, so you are at the same time a part of the universal consciousness, and you are a separate thing. You're both at the same time. Those two things coming together, okay? Your relative self, desiring what you desire to create in the universe, is causing you to go out. Okay, that desire is pushing you, in ideal conditions when you understand what desire really is pushing you to go out and interact with the universe in a way that's allowing the universe to see itself, to understand itself in a new way from your vantage point that it's never understood itself before. Okay, so as you desire, as you are living, you are constantly in a state of learning something new about yourself, learning something new about the reality, those two things essentially being the same thing, right? Because who you are is a part of the whole reality. The whole reality is a part of what you are. And as these two things interact, we create new information. And what is new information? New information is the capacity to create something new, to evolve. So the universe is expanding based on all of these new experiences. Every single time you as a relative you have an interaction with the universe in your relative way, it's something that's never happened before. That's a chemical reaction. This compound, or this element plus this element, interacting, creating all these different new pieces of information that's creating this new compound that's never been before. That's expansion. That's the whole point. So you desiring what you desire, again, the desire is simply the carrot on the stick that gets you to go to interact with the universe so that the universe can learn more about itself, so that life can continue to be life. Every single time the universe learns something about itself, it is expanded, because then it can create something new based on that new information. That's how everything's expanding. That's how life is propagating itself. Okay? Your desire is simply you being a pawn in the universal game of self-awareness. It's the universe learning about itself. And like I say, it's just that very cool thing of every time the universe learns something about itself, it can create something new, and therefore it has something new to learn about itself. And then it learns that thing about itself, and then it can create something new, and then it can learn about that. And then it can create something new, and it can learn from that. So that's why I say everything that you accomplish is a foundation for the next thing you're going to create, right? Because you just became more complex. And based on the fact that you are now more complex, you can take in more information than you were able to take in before, and higher level information than you were able to take in before, which means the next thing you're going to be able to create is going to be way more complex than the thing you were able to create last time. And then you do that, you become more complex, you take in the new information, you understand it, you create something new, you become more complex again, which then makes you more capable of taking in more information about the universe, which, right, you take in more information, you can create something even more complex. So everything is just going to be the new bottom. Everything is just the new foundation for the next thing. It's always going to be like that. So, how do we live in a world where we're constantly going to be in a state of desire? And being in that state of desire is a prerequisite for living. Because again, if we didn't have desire, we wouldn't be propelled to go interact with the universe. If we were totally and completely satisfied with what we had, we would just sit and do what we've always done every single day, same thing over and over and over again, which would diminish over time the amount of new experiences we're having, the amount of new information we're interacting with, because we're just doing the same thing over and over and over again, which then eventually makes it so that we're not learning anymore. We're not seeing new things. We're no longer life generating. And that's going to start the death cycle. Right? And we watch this. Older people tend to, in the later stages of their lives, get into routines. And then as they get into those routines, like they were searching for comfort and retirement syndrome, heaven, got it all done. I don't have to work anymore. I don't have to raise kids anymore. I did all that. I can just enjoy myself now. Learning is over. Right? Because we all have this idea that learning equals pain, and learning is hard, and if I don't have what I want and I haven't accomplished it yet, I have to be suffering. So we think that because we've correlated desire and learning with being something that equals suffering, so we're trying to say, to get to a place of not suffering, I have to have it all figured out and be done. But then once we do that, what we actually see what happens is people who are old don't find joy in getting their routine, no longer working, no longer living, no longer learning, and just trying to have their routine. We see that their worlds then become smaller and smaller and smaller. They then start to project their discomfort onto more and more things in their life, right? So now that I don't have to work anymore, I thought I'd be happy, but I'm not happy, so maybe it's this relationship, so I'll get rid of that. Or maybe it's this thing, so I'll get rid of that. Or maybe it's this thing, so I'll get rid of that. And they start to simplify their lives until eventually their world is so small. Their amount, like they only walk around the block and talk to the same people every day and eat the same food every day, and then they die because they literally stopped growing and went into a state of degradation, getting rid of information, becoming less complex, simpler, thinking simpler was going to make them happy. And it didn't. And we watch as the people who actually live the longest are the people who keep learning, who keep growing, who keep they learn dance when they're 90. They learn a new language. They pursue hobbies. They pursue passions. They keep doing stuff. They keep having new experiences. Rather than trying to make their world smaller and smaller and smaller, they continue to learn. And they live. And that's why they're living, because they're having life-generating experiences. So this is what you need to understand. Desire is the impetus to keep you life-generating. It's the thing that's alerting you to what you don't already know about the universe and how the universe works. And it's this interplay between the idea that we are meant to be creators, because it is in the creation of something new that the universe expands. Yes, the universe wants to be learning, growing, changing, evolving, and expanding, because that's what life is. Desire is what we want to create, and that is life generation. And in order to create something new, we have to learn about the structure and the pattern that already exists, and that's self-awareness. So the universe wants these two things. Life wants these two things: evolution and self-awareness. Because in order to evolve, in order to create something new, we must become aware of what is. In order to become aware of what is, we need to have the desire to create something new. Because if we don't have the desire to create something new, we're not going to have the motivation to go learn about what is. That is this infinite loop of creation. Okay? The desire to create something new stimulates us to go learn about what is, which then gives us the capacity to expand upon what is, which then gives birth to a new desire, which then motivates us to go learn about the structure. Yes? Become more self-aware, which then gives us the capacity to create something new based on all that complex information that we just realized, which then expands the universe, creates new information, which then gives us the impetus to go learn something new about ourselves. You see? Self-awareness, desire, creation. Self-awareness, desire, creation. Self-awareness, desire, creation. That is the loop. So the first things first. The way we can be in a state of desire without it being a state of feeling like we're in lack and that's painful. Number one is to understand that where you are right now is not a sign that you will never have what you want. Okay? That's superstition. And we really have to be aware of that. Okay? That's victim state. When you have a desire for something and you feel shitty that you don't have it, you got to understand that really what that's showing you is that you have a foundational belief that you can never know what it's going to take to create what you want. That is why it feels bad. It doesn't feel bad because you know you don't have it. That is inherent to life. That doesn't have to feel bad. If you want something and you know how you're going to get it, and you feel capable of doing whatever it's going to take to get what you want, having the desire is no longer painful. Now you just know you have a journey you're going to go on, and you pretty much see what that journey is going to be. You have this kind of understanding that you're going to be able to have what you want, and then all of a sudden not having it anymore doesn't feel so bad because you know you're going to have it. And then you're willing to do the steps that it takes to have it. That is really what's going on there. So when you feel shitty about not having something, you need to understand the story you're telling yourself is, I don't know how I'm going to get it, and therefore I'm telling myself I'm probably not going to be able to get it. And if you exist in that state, if you stay there, you're probably right. Okay? And then the superstition of, if I just give the universe happiness, it's going to give me what I want. You got to understand again, that's superstition. That's projecting out onto the universe your human desire to feel happy right now, thinking if I give the universe what I would want, it's going to give me what I want. Yeah? That's all that is. That is, and again, that is a step above, I literally have no idea how I'm going to create it. I literally have no idea how I'm going to get from where I am to where I want to be. I have no power and no control, to saying, okay, well, I have power over my emotions. So if I just do this emotional thing, I'll get what I want. And it feels bad and it feels stressful because, again, it's not totally the truth. It's not the whole picture. It's not actually empowering you, because that's not really how it works. Okay? The reason it feels so stressful or manic, right? So a lot of the time when we first learn about this secret or the manifestation shit, if I just have if I just stay in my vibrational thing, look, quantum mechanics, I'm sending things out into the universe and the protons are coming back to me and it's all this magical shit, that feels so exciting, right? Because it's like, good, now all I have to do is be in control of my emotions. That seems so easy and so simple, and it makes so much sense. Quantum science, blah, magic, crystals, fairies, arrow. I'm going to get what I want by just being happy all the time. And then, so you feel that manicness of, oh, it's so simple, right? So you've been lifted out of, I literally have no idea how I'm going to create what I want to create. The universe is super confusing to me. I don't understand how it works. I don't understand why what's happening is happening. I don't understand why what isn't happening. I'm completely at the whim of the reality to give it to me or not. And that feels shitty because I know I'm probably never going to get what I want, because I'm supposed to be a creator who's creating it and I'm not doing what it takes to create it, and therefore I feel like shit. All I have to do is be in a state of happiness. Feels empowering at first. Feels like that's good. Then I have some control, right? It's not just, is the universe going to give it to me or not? It's, okay, I know how to manipulate the universe into giving it to me by being happy. But then we crash because we can't be happy all the time. We're always going to have negative emotions, because the negative emotions, again, are showing us where we have blocks in our understanding. That's all that a negative emotion is. A negative emotion is simply a thing inside of you that's saying, something is happening. It's out of alignment. I don't understand why it's out of alignment, and I don't understand how to create alignment. All I know is whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm believing, whatever I'm participating in goes against the system. And therefore I am breaking myself against the system because I am the system. Okay? So the real truth of manifestation and creation is that it's just a system. It's a complex system. How the reality works is complex, but everything that you wish to create is going to be created one step of understanding the system, working within the system, creating something within that, which then creates new awareness of the system, which then creates new understanding of yourself, new understanding of what you want, a new creation. You see this infinite loop being exactly what's happening with the humans? Okay? Every time you want something, what you're really saying is, there's a whole bunch of the structure of the universe that I want to understand. That's what my consciousness is here to see. My desire to create what I want to create is really just the motivation I need to go learn about this aspect of the universe that only I can learn about because of who I am relative in this universal experience. You are the only one who's going to be able to see the universe from your perspective. So that self-awareness part, the universe being aware of itself, you are completely one with everything. What you learn through your relative experience is added to consciousness itself. All of consciousness, universal consciousness, everything that you experience is giving the universe information about itself. That's why we say the universe isn't done. It's not complete. It doesn't know everything about itself. You're participating in the universe becoming self-aware. And again, every single time we create something new, it could not possibly be done because we're still creating new things. And if we're creating new things, the universe couldn't know that about itself because it's not created yet. And of course, in quantum, when we understand that time and space, all time and space exists, at some level of reality, everything's already been created and all that stuff. But just from our human level of understanding and awareness, let's just say, it's not done yet. You haven't made it yet. You haven't seen it yet. So your desire is there. to get you to become aware of something about yourself and something about the reality. That the second thing is that there is a structure, and it's a complex structure. So in order for you to create what you want to create, you have to understand the structure and alter your behavior to fit the structure. It's not magic. Manifestation is not magic. There is no magic. There is no arrow. It's cause and effect. There's a structure to how reality works. This is how soil works. This is how this plant works. This is how the weather patterns are. If you want a plant to grow, you need to plant it in the way that aligns with that structure. If you plant it in a way that it doesn't, the plant will not grow. You will have pain. Not because pain is a punishment, or you should have had if you just are very positive about your plant, it'll grow. No, right? If you plant a flower in sand that has no water and no sun, it's not going to grow no matter how positive you are. Why? Because that's out of alignment with the structure. It's just not how it works. You can be in the worst mood forever and plant a plant in soil, in light conditions, and give it water, and it will grow. And I know people are going to be like, yeah, well, what about the studies where it's sent positive music and negative music and the plant didn't grow and all that? Superstition, you guys. We got to start to think. Emotions have an effect. Absolutely. So let's put this in another context, okay? How you treat your emotions completely determines how you're going to be able to create and how you won't. Okay? When you feel negative, when you feel sad and angry and helpless and victimized, that right there is not happening because you have a desire. Okay? Again, that's happening because you don't understand how the system works, and therefore you can't create what you desire. If you are to take those negative emotions, those feelings, all that pain that you have, and you're going to start to say, okay, again, just like everything else, these negative emotions have a cause. They have information. Everything is information. These negative emotions are the next thing I need to learn about the structure and the nature of reality. There's a reason I feel like shit, okay? And this is when I say everything happens for a reason, but not in the magical, esoteric, everything happens for a benevolent, good reason. Everything happens for a reason in the sense that there's a structure and every cause has an effect. That's what we mean by everything happens for a reason, okay? So if you can start to understand what happens is neutral. It's not good or bad. It's not happening for a good reason. It's not happening for a negative reason. You're not being punished or rewarded. It's nothing like that. It's simply there's a structure. Okay? When you put your hand on a burner that's on and it hurts, you're not being punished by the universe. That's an effect of a cause. The burner is hot. Temperatures that are that high destroy tissue of the human vessel. That's the system. So if you put your hand on that, tissues are going to start to get destroyed. You have pain to let you know that that destruction is happening. And that's really what we kind of have to think of if we want to think that the universe is benevolent. The reason we could say that the universe is benevolent is the fact that we have emotions. The fact that we have pain perceptors that let us know, are we breaking ourselves or are we generating? Are we working with the system? That is what we are a part of, right? So understanding again, when we go against the system, because we're a relative experience within the universal thing, we break ourselves. We are one with the system, but we are the thing we have control over in the universe. The most effect of the destructive behavior that you're going to do is going to be on you. Okay? The most effect that the constructive behavior that you do is going to be on you. Other people can participate with you and therefore create construction or destruction with themselves, right? We all have to agree to interact. But ultimately, you're destroying yourself when you're going against the system, when you're trying to create against how the system works. So everything has a reason. And if you can start to say, instead of saying, why is this happening? You can start to say, why is this happening? If I'm not being able to create what I want to create, if I'm not being able to have what I want, it's not because it's not possible. It's because whatever I'm doing right now is creating what I've got. This is the exact thing that should be happening based on what I'm doing. That's what we need to understand. And if I want to create something different and I'm not able to, it's because I don't understand the complexity of the system. I don't understand all the different things that are happening during that arrow that are creating this. It's not just my emotions. And if I just get my emotions under control, that's all that's happening in the creation of my life. No, emotions are a part of it. I'm not saying your emotions have nothing to do with creation. I'm saying it's a very small part. And if you just focus on that, you're going to become neurotic. Yes, it's like anorexia. It's like any obsession that we have. We're taking our misunderstanding of all the complex parts of not being able to create what we want to create and saying, if I just control this one area, I'm going to have everything that I want in every other area. And because that's not true, that's oversimplifying. We get neurotic, right? We want to have control. We want to have power. So we're thinking, just clamp down more on my emotions, just clamp down more on my emotions, just clamp down more on my emotions. And we become neurotic because we're supposed to be taking responsibility and actual empowered action in all these different areas of our lives, in all the areas that are required to create what we want to create. But because we're not learning about those, because that's complicated, we just zero in and zero in and zero in and nitpick and nitpick and nitpick our diet and nitpick our emotions and nitpick this and this and this and this, thinking if we just micromanage this one part that we think we have control over enough, we'll eventually have control. It's not going to happen. If you find yourself nitpicking, narrowing in on your Groundhog Day, right? You're constantly obsessing about this part of your life, thinking this is the reason I don't have what I want. This is the reason I'm unhappy. No, it's not. You're putting all of your creation eggs in one basket, and that's not how it works. The negative emotions that you're feeling are letting you know that there's so much more about reality that you need to understand in order to create what you want. So I'm wearing my durian shirt right now. And I got it from Lindsay of Year of the Durian, so if you want one, you should get one. And you should just follow her blog because she's really, really cool. And I want to just end this video with my personal story on this, like how I learned all this stuff. That everything that I just said in this video comes from personal experience, and here's my personal experience. I was sick, right? And you watched my health journey video maybe, and you know that I was sick for my whole life. And rather than going into helplessness, right? At 14, I decided I was going to figure out how to get healthy. I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to feel good. I wanted love. I wanted all these things. I had a lot of desires that were not being met. And rather than hoping or wishing or praying that someone or something was going to just deliver it to me or whatever, I decided I was going to start to take things into my own hands. And so I started dieting and I started getting into food and all these things. And of course, right, I also went through a period where my awareness of myself, my awareness of the universe, my awareness of how things worked and what I wanted and what it was going to take to make me happy in this life was so low that coming out of complete victimhood, which is what I was in as a child, like a sick child who has no control over my food, no control over my body, I don't understand anything, and therefore I'm victim to this sickness. Like, getting better was going to require that some doctor was going to figure it out or my parents were going to figure it out. Like, it was totally outside of myself. To those first empowering steps of I'm going to start to take this into my own hands. If I just find the right diet, I'll be able to figure this out. Right? That is what got me into my period of superstition. Right? Anorexia for me was essentially a superstition. It was, I had all these other areas in my life, so many other areas in my life that were totally out of alignment and causing me pain, that I couldn't even see, couldn't understand, didn't know about, and didn't have control over. Obviously, because I didn't understand them or even see them. I wasn't even aware of them. But what I was aware of and what I could see was that I did have control over my diet. So as I was feeling shitty in my life, because so many things were out of alignment, in order to give myself that feeling of power, I needed my superstition of if I just diet more, if I just lose more weight, if I just nitpick the shit out of my diet, I'm going to be happy one day. That was my superstition. Okay, now the reason I showed you this shirt. In the very, very beginning of my health journey, I discovered raw foods. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of information out there on raw foods, and there weren't a lot of experts. And so I rented, like I said, I rented pretty much every book on raw foods from the library that existed. And one of them was Eating for Beauty by David Wolfe. And again, I read through this book, and there were so many different foods in there. And he was just basically listing foods and their health benefits. And it's one of those kind of like junk books that you can kind of look at now and think like this is pretty silly. But back in the day, I was flipping through, and inside the book, I saw a picture of a durian. And he was just talking about how amazing this durian fruit was. And I remember thinking like, man, I really want a durian. This sounds so cool. It's got all these health properties, blah, 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 blah. And again, I don't really even know why I became so obsessed with it. And so this is the thing. Like, maybe the magic part is just our individual perception and the things that we're going to zero in on and the other things we're going to cancel out. That's kind of like the magic of it. It's like just the things that are going to spark you that, right? Because we're taking in so much information at all the time. Like this book had so many different foods in it, but for some reason it was the durian that stood out to me. So that's, if you want to believe that there's magic in your life, just know that it's your individual perception and perspective that filters out all this other information, that gets you to focus on specific things that will then propel you to create what you want to create. Like what you're interested in and what sparks desire in you and what sparks interest in you, that's always going to be what you should follow. Why? Because listen, right? So I get excited about this durian fruit, and I literally made my parents. So we're living in frickin' Calgary. Like, it's the tundra of Canada. It's the middle of winter. And I sent my parents, I was like, I think I've seen that at the grocery store. I think I saw that at Superstore. And I sent my parents to go to the grocery store to buy me a durian. And they bought me a durian. And it was the first durian I ever ate. And I'm sure it was shit. Like, it was like a shitty frozen monthong durian in Canada. And I ate it, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, this is like the most amazing thing I've ever seen. This is so cool. And that started me on becoming aware of Thailand and Asia in general, and deciding that I wanted to live over here at some point. Now, this first awareness of durian fruit happened in 2007. And that was like a seed, a very, very small seed, and I think that's kind of ironic and funny that it was a fruit. That was a seed of this whole long journey I was going to take to become the person that I am right now, who lives in Asia, runs my own company. So I was miserable in my life. And it wasn't just because I was sick. It was because everything in my life was out of alignment with who I am and what is truly natural for me and what I wanted to create in my life. It was all trauma, okay? It was all negative emotion because everything was breaking me against the system. Everything was me being broken against the system. And I feel like we're all born into that to some degree or other. We're all born into a state of degradation. And this is why I say degradation in and of itself is not bad. we're always going to be in a state of degradation. We're always going to be in a state of breaking ourselves against the reality, because that's, again, a part of the requirement for growth. We need to be continually becoming aware of what we don't know that we don't know in order to learn what we don't know. So to be in a state of degradation, again, is not inherently bad, so long as we're willing to learn from it. So this is the point. Pretty much everything in my life was a degrading thing back then. Living in winter, working jobs that I didn't love. I didn't know what my passion was. I didn't know what my purpose was. I didn't have good relationships. I had completely terrible, awful, false beliefs about myself and the world. My health was in a state of decay, and just like everything was degrading in that state. All the way fast forward to now, 10 years later, from that first time I discovered durian. No, now it's 12 years later. I'm living this life that's almost completely unrecognizable to me in 2007, okay? I'm running my own company. I didn't even know YouTube was a thing back then, right? I literally make money posting videos about talking about the things that I know about the universe, which is like the only thing I've ever cared about for my entire life. I have a loving husband who we have a reciprocal relationship, which is like the first time in my entire life I've ever had that. I have friends who actually care about me, which again, that's the first time that's ever happened in my life. I've made so many changes to how I think about myself and my purpose and even just what I think I'm here to do and like literally just everything has changed. I don't even know how to say it. Like there's not one thing that's the same today as it was back then. And I created this life one step at a time. So that first thing was, I want durian, right? And so I created that for myself. I asked for my parents to go get me some durian. They got me durian. And then that sparked the desire to want to live in Asia, which then also sparked a desire to want to live, right? So then I started working normal jobs and realizing I didn't want to work a normal job, which sparked a desire to want to have my own company. And that was a whole big complicated thing that I did not know how I was going to create that. And it took me 4 or 5 years before I went from working at a yoga studio, right, working a normal job like everybody else, to sustainably running a company. It took me like 5 years. There was a lot of things I needed to learn. Second thing, right, getting from 2007 Allie in Calgary to 2019 Allie who can live in Asia. So many things that I had to learn about the structure. So what I'm saying here is this. There were so many points along the way where I got really discouraged, right? I wanted my online company. I wanted to feel better in my body. So I wanted my online company and it wasn't really working. I wanted to feel better in my body and I wasn't really seeing healing. I wanted to be in Asia and it didn't seem like we were moving closer to that. And all the while where I was in this state of seeing what I wanted, not knowing how I was going to get there, and then telling myself that I should already be there. So that's the first thing. I should already be there. And the fact that I'm not already there is a sign that I might not ever get there. And B, that whatever is happening for no reason. There's some sort of block or something's in my way to getting where I want to go. That is what caused me pain. Okay? Whenever I was able to say, no, wherever I'm at right now makes perfect sense. And if I don't understand why I am where I am right now, I need to understand why I am where I am right now. So rather than saying this is wrong, I started to say, no, this isn't what I want, but it's right. In the sense that wherever I was, I understood that there's a structure to how reality works, and based on the things that I'm doing, this is what I'm creating. So I need to understand why all the things that I'm doing are creating this. And if I understand why all the things that I'm doing are creating this, rather than judging this as being wrong, I embraced that this makes sense. Even though I don't understand it, it doesn't make sense to me right now. I assume this makes sense. This is the structure. This is the effect of the cause. I just need to understand the cause. As I started to say, okay, why is this happening? I started to understand more about the structure. It's way more complex. I'm not getting clients for these reasons. The reason my thing isn't taking off is because of this. This is how the structure works. I'm not working within the structure, so I'm not getting what I want from the structure. My body is still not doing what I want it to do. Why? Well, because all of these things are factors that I didn't even notice, right? But it's starting to say everything that's happening should be happening. Nothing is an impediment to where I want to go if I don't make it an impediment. So anytime I said this shouldn't be happening, I blocked myself from understanding why it was happening. And then it became an impediment to me going to where I wanted to go, right? Because as I said this shouldn't be happening, I then couldn't learn why it was happening. And when I couldn't learn why it was happening, I couldn't understand the structure. And when I can't understand the structure, I can't create something new and more complex within the structure. I'm forced to keep doing what I'm doing over and over and over again, because in order to create something new, I need more information. I need to understand the structure better than I understand it, right? I was doing this chemical plus this chemical, arrow this compound, having no idea why it created that compound. So I'm thinking I'll just change this or change that and I'll get a new compound. No, I need to understand every single thing that happens. Okay, now, don't get overwhelmed, okay? I can feel you and hear you going, oh my God, I need to understand everything. No. All you need to understand, it's what's at the next level of complexity for you. So getting from where you are to what you want is going to be many, 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 many orders of magnitude more complex than where you are right now. But in order to get there, you don't have to quantum leap from this level of complexity and understanding to that level. So like I say, Allie back in 2007 didn't understand anything about health, didn't understand anything about travel, didn't understand anything about running a business, didn't understand anything about relationships, literally didn't understand anything that I know now that is required for me to live the life that I'm living now. Okay? My desires were leading me to become a far more complex person. My life is far more complex than it was when I was sick living at home with my parents. Running at my own company, having real relationships, knowing myself, expanding, growing, doing all this stuff, so much more complex. Traveling the world, being in control of our finances and finding places to live, it's a lot. But I can do it because I am so much more complex. So everything is happening for a reason. And you just need to start to understand what is in your view right now. So whatever's bothering you, just start to say, okay, this is happening for a reason. Stop rejecting it. Why is this happening? I shouldn't be somewhere else because based on how the structure of reality works, I'm exactly where I should be based on how the pattern is. So if this isn't what I want, I need to learn something new about the structure. That's it. It's not just one thing. Don't go into superstition. It's not just your emotions or just your body or just this thinking thing or just that. It's going to be a lot. So take the thing you know and then look for the next thing. What else? What else? What else am I not seeing? What am I not seeing? What am I not seeing? Go into the unknown. Let everything be information that's leading you where you want to go. And it will be. But that's your choice. If you choose to see it as an impediment, it will be. If you choose to see this as wrong, you will never understand anything new and you will never get there. I allowed myself to let everything that happened to me be information. I said, okay, this is happening for a reason. Why is this happening? What do I need to know? What do I need to know? What do I need to know? Oh, okay, so then I need to do this new thing. Now what do I need to do? Okay, now then do this new thing. Now what do I need to know? Now do this new thing, right? It was just submit a blog. Okay, so I submitted a blog. Now ask for the job, right? Okay, ask for the job. Now that I have this job, expand my thing that I'm doing in the job. Expand the thing I'm doing in this job. Now I'm working online. Now I can start my own company. Now I can do this. Now I can do this. It was all just growing one step at a time. One new piece of information that led to the new thing that led to the new thing. Remember the whole loop? That's what desire is. Desire gets you to learn new information, which helps you create something new, which is then the foundation for the new thing you're going to learn, which gives birth to the new desire, which helps you learn something new, which helps you create something more complex, which gives birth to a new desire. It's always that. Everything is happening for a reason. You just need to understand it. Let life teach you, and you can create whatever you want if you allow yourself to be taught by reality. If you don't have what you want, you have to become more complex, one step at a time. Create something new. Don't look for the whole thing, one step at a time. Okay? So if you have comments, questions, concerns, leave those down below. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.